talk about supplement, not supplant for a moment. I'm going to focus on just Title I for now, the supplement, not supplant. Note that supplement, not supplant, the old methodology holds for the district level piece of Title I. Keep in mind that supplement, not supplant, in layman's terms, means that these funds come on top of what the district is already expected to do. So it's called supplemental funding for a reason. They're kind of like the extra. And so one of the most important things on this particular slide is the last bullet. It says the bottom line is to look at state or local funding of schools in the absence of federal funding, determine if schools are receiving funding or resources equitable. So I'm going to say about that, but he's going to understand the period of pause. Sometimes it just maybe it will come back, you know. No. So when we talk about supplement, not supplant, back in I think it was 2018, we asked the district to develop a methodology for that to put into the GEMS application. So if you are new and you have inherited a plan, you are going to find that methodology in the related documents section of the Title I application. So you go to GEMS main page, sections page, you go to that related documents link, and it should be in there for you. That is, if the person prior to you put in there. Now, as a new Title I coordinator, this is something you need to know that you're going to work with finance to do. So don't feel like that this is all in your head to come up with. This is why you need to be good friends with finance. And you don't have to be besties, but you got to get along because there's lots of conversations that happen between program and finance, or should happen between the two. So this is one of those areas. So this slide has their possible exemptions for doing that. And if that applies to your district, there is a form that you can request from your program manager that you will basically just check off that that is your district, and you will sign, and that is what you upload. For everybody else, they put it into the related documents section. And so this is one new thing, okay, for 26 Title I. This is the first new. So if you are a vet, newbie number one for the upcoming year. Okay, sometimes in the past, we would just look to see that it is one thing or the other. Either you're putting in the financial information or you're putting in like the ratios for class size. This time, we're going to ask to see both. And so your PowerPoint presentation has an example, and looky, Richland 2, you are the great example wherever you are for what it could look like. So your PowerPoint will have an example for you that you can go back to finance and kind of say, okay, we need something that looks similar for our upload. If we're taking a look at not the financial piece, but we're looking at the class size, staffing information, I'll tell you kind of how that goes from a program manager's point of view. When I review, so I have, let's say I have 4 as program manager there. When I review, if I'm looking at any class sizes and activities down in the school-wide plans, I have a a big screen. So on one side of the screen is this information from the related documents section, and I'm looking at it against the activity that I'm reading. Okay, and the two have to make sense together. And if they don't, then I ask questions about that. So you've got to make sure if you're doing anything with like class size reduction, that you put in your staffing so that we can compare and make sure everything makes sense. You've got to meet your district's staffing ratios. So if it is more restricted than the state's, I will say, okay, well, you not meet your own. I will ask questions about that. Okay, so this is new. So if you are working on that Title I plan and you feel like, oh, I got it, I'm not ready to hit the button. No, you're not. Okay, because there are 3 or 4 or 5 new things that are coming out today about Title I. You're going to have to put in. So I have had some districts say, well, Jennifer, I'm ready to submit. I would say I would rather you not submit just yet because of the information you'll receive today and also the information about the current climate. Okay, so keep all of those things in mind as to where we are right now. So what else must be included in an LEA Title I plan? So here in just a moment, you're going to hear from Teresa Gregory, who is our private school ombudsman. She's going to talk about some new expectations for the 26 Title I plan as well. Leslie Pelosi is going to come and talk to you about parent-family engagement and what new requirement there will be in 26 Title I. And then Merle and Kim are going to come and they're going to talk about the homeless reserve. So these are 3 specific components we're going to kind of ease in on. So I'm going to ask Teresa if she will come on and do equitable services. For Title I, she's going to speak to how equitable services is handled for Title I. And so tomorrow, she'll get into what it looks like for Title II, 4, 5, all the others. For today, focus is going to be on Title. I would like for us to, if you're kind of gauging where we are in the PowerPoint, I'd like us to make it through the homeless set-aside piece before we go to lunch. So that'll kind of give you like a thinking how far we got to go before we take lunch.
Good morning. Again, I am Teresa Gregory. I'm the ombudsman for the state of South Carolina for equitable services. And I'm speaking to you right now, as Jennifer said, about Title I, equitable services. The equitable services for all of your Title I schools, which basically means your private school system in your geographical area, as well as outside of your geographical boundaries. All those students are actually entitled to receive Title I funding at those private schools. The goal that we have is to provide all children fair and equitable services, high quality education, cozy educational gap. Under the ASPA Section 117 requirements, we need to make sure that the LEAs consult with the private schools. Officials, that means everyone again within your geographical area, as far as your geographical location and outside of it. We want to provide eligible private non-school children with the children, the teachers, and their families with Title I services and benefits equitable to those that are provided to the students that are in private school, basically public schools as well. The eligible children are the ones that reside within a Title I attendance area within your geographical area. So if you have children that are attending private schools within your Title I areas, they are entitled to receive the equitable services. To be eligible, residing and participating in Title I public school attendance area. And of course, you identify these as the LEA, low achieving based on multiple education related objectives and criteria. The child itself may be identified as eligible solely by their status, which means a homeless child. You can actually have children that are participating in Head Start, Title II Part B, children in local institutions like the neglected and delinquent. Now, the facility itself does not qualify for Title I services, for equitable services. But if you have a child that is in there, that is in their Title I service area, and they're in this neglected and delinquent facility, they can receive Title I equitable services. As the LEA, you have a list of responsibilities to make sure that all private schools or students receive what they need. You need to list all the available services when you're talking to your private school representatives. You need to make sure that you are specifically setting deadlines with them. You want to be honest, open, and upfront with them when you're doing this. You need to make sure that all services are acceptable, neutral, and non-ideological. Non-ideological. Okay, sorry about that. Sometimes first thing in the morning. We need to ensure that the services go to low achieving students, maintain control of all funds, property, materials, equipment that stays in your inventory like you would do with your public schools. Need to make sure that you maintain an ongoing communication with these private school representatives, and it is very important that you do so because we have to have meaningful and timely consultation with them. And it's lasts throughout the entire time they are receiving the Title I services. You identify and reach out to all of your private schools, again, inside and outside of the geographical boundaries. You need to make sure that you're sending invitations to all of them. And these invitations need to make sure you have something on them that's going to indicate whether they're going to accept these services or they're going to decline these services. I can emphasize that because it's important that we've had a case where someone said that they did not receive the services, but the school itself, the LEA, didn't have it documented. So therefore, we had to go through a process of going through a meaningful consultation after everything has been divided up and taken care of because we didn't have the proper documentation. So that's one of the things to make sure that we are doing what we need to do when these invitations are sent out to all of the private school representatives. Again, the top of the list, you see your consultation is timely and meaningful. We need to make sure we are identifying the needs of the children and the educators are being identified as well. The type of services that will be offered. This needs to happen during your consultation. You need to talk to the private schools to see what they need to do. Should they be doing a needs assessment? Yes. You need to make sure that you're sitting down with them and getting them to talk to you openly about what's needed for that child, not the school, but the child. How, when, where, by whom the services will be provided. You also need to make sure that these services will be assessed and how the results of the assessments will be used. So should you be doing a follow-up with them to ensure that the services that they're doing are falling in line with their needs assessment? You most definitely do. Size for the equitable services to be provided to eligible private school children and educators. The amount of the funds also for the services and how that amount is determined. Continuing with your consultation and how and when for what's going to happen with the entity that will make the decision about the delivery of the services. They should be getting with you. You should be making the decisions about where the service or how the services want to be delivered. They can most definitely recommend, suggest something, but they cannot go out It is your responsibility as the LEA to make sure that the services are secured, and they should not be doing that for you. Whether to provide equitable service to eligible private school children and educators by creating a pool or a pool of funds, which pooling can be done, but you would have to make sure that it is within, for example, the Diocese of Charleston, that they can actually do a pooling if they have schools within your district and choose to do so. How often does that happen? Slim to none. But it is eligible for them to do, and you need to make sure that you're communicating that with them. Terms and timelines of the grant. It is very important that we discuss this during the consultation time, because we have to understand that the private school does have the opportunity to use the funds past the 1 year. Now, if you choose to have it within that year's time, which you can, you just need to make sure you're establishing that deadline and communicating that with the private school from the beginning. I say that because we have a lot of private schools that will not spend their money and cannot spend their money. And you know, with Title I, you have to, it's required of you to offer it to any other participating private schools before you can pull it back into the district for its use. So it's important that you do this during your consultation. If you want to make sure that they're doing it within that year, that you ask them to do it and establish a deadline. Private schools can deny the funds after they receive it, and if they do, again, it has to be redistributed to all of the remaining participating private schools or offered to them, because they can decline it if they want to. But it has to be offered to them, and you need to make sure that you do that and get it in writing before you take it back to the district for use. Now, as far as the parties when they're accepting it, I have been currently working with John that is doing this over our agendas. And there is a procedure that we're trying to get in the system where you can pull it back, and it will do a distribution with the funds that will remain from the school that are denied. So therefore, right now, it was my hope to have it done by now, but it's not. But I am currently working on getting that done, and as soon as it is, I will put out a communication about this and how you can handle that change in agents to make sure the money is being distributed like it should. And above all, please remember that we must be communicating during the consultation. Very important, very important. Jennifer spoke about some new requirements that we have. There's some things that we need to be doing on my side as well as your side to make sure that we're doing what needs to be done for the private schools, and that's being documented. All private school documentation should be loaded into your teams. And when I say the private school documentation, we're talking about the invitations, the deadlines, the acceptance that they're going to be doing, your original mailings that need to be put, your original mailings that you sent out, anything that was returned, all of that you typically have put in your 2 and 4, it needs to be put in all of your times now. And my colleagues will be looking for that when it comes down to reviewing the applications. I know some certified mail is also done through email as well. That is acceptable. It's just that we need to make sure you're doing due diligence to make sure all of these private schools are receiving the invitations and the communications that are required for them to receive for Title I. Now, we do have resources that's on the website now. The intent to participate letter, the needs assessment that you can have with you to work with your private school representatives. That's on there as well. We have examples of the private school to parent letter, family income letter, and you also have an evaluation for that equitable services. It is important we do an evaluation because you need to have a full understanding of what they're asking is actually working. Because if it's not, just like you do with your schools and your public schools and the principals, We need to make sure that we're doing the same thing with the private schools and evaluating as well. Those ones that I just spoke of are examples. It's not anything that's required to be loaded into gyms or sent to me via email, but the affirmation of consultation for Title I Part A must be sent in. And you should, it's submitted to the Equitable Services email address that is on the form. And it is only for participating private schools in Title I. So if you have one that declines the services, you don't need to move any further when it comes down to the affirmation of consultation. But if they have, you need to make sure that's done and placed in email to me so it can be on file. The private schools is, the next one is actually a link to the private schools in South Carolina. I can tell you, I thank you first of all for the work that you did to send all that information to me. I have compiled a list that we have on our website is slim in comparison to the ones that you all have provided me with. And I thank you for that. Taking the time. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you doing that for me. And this will be on the website so you'll know which schools are located around you, as well as the ones in the districts. Okay. So thank you on that. That is all for me for Title I. Do I have any questions? Yes. There is no mileage up to you right now. So we know back in the day we had that 25-mile radius. As long as your child is attending to your knowledge, that is attending a private school, then now you should be reaching out to them. So please take the 25-mile radius out because I have because it does not exist. So you know that a child is outside of your vision. And they're going to a school that's could be 50 miles away. Still need to reach out to that school. Only if you know them. If you don't know, any other questions? Well, thank you for your time, and I'm gonna turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Brooks.
Do you need anything? So please. Okay, so you're in gyms, you already calculated your PPA and all that jazz, just on your equitable services, and now you're on to the LEA citizen page. So I'm going to talk to you about required set-asides. Then after lunch, I'll come back and talk to you about some additional set-asides that you may have at the LEA April district. So what is a set-aside? Well, that's a reservation that you make at the district level. And this gets taken out of however much money you're sending out to the school. So you really need to be mindful and how much money we're setting aside. All right. So you have two required set-asides for Title I. The first one is parent community engagement. You have to set aside 1% of your total allocation must be reserved for parent community engagement. And that's if you are receiving over $500,000 in your allocation. I want to talk to you in just a minute about what that looks like. So of that 1% of your allocation, 90% of that amount should be coming from your schools. Your schools should be planning your at their level, they know what their parents and families need. So 90% of that allocation should be coming from the schools. Now, it may all come from the schools, which is great. Maybe your school district doesn't have any needs for parent engagement. Maybe you're paying for a liaison at the district level that goes to all your Title I schools. That's a lot of expense. The other required set aside is and Dr. Katie Bento supplemental money. So we'll have Burley and Kim come up and talk about that in just a So I want to talk to you about parent and family engagement first. Within GEMS, it does calculate for you how much you should be setting aside. And you will get a lovely error message if you don't. So at the top, it tells you what your allocation is. Then after that, it tells you what 1% of that allocation is. Underneath that, it's already calculating what 90% should be, which you can from the schools. Then underneath that, it's going to pull from your budget whatever you have budgeted at 188, which is family engagement. So that's going to be coming from your schools. So whatever you put in from my schools, it's going to calculate in that next one. So it's going to automatically. And then the last one is what your total parent and engagement is from what you're setting aside in the district, as well as what you're setting aside in the schools. So GEMS is awesome, and it calculates this for you. So what if the requirement allocation is less than 5%? If that is the case, you do not have to set aside 1%. However, you still have to do all the requirements under the ESEA section 1116 that have to deal with parent and family engagement. I will tell you that I'm not going to get into all of those requirements with you. There are some links in just a second that will give you more information about what is required. And you can always reach out to me and have conversations as well. Also, equitable services is required to have parent and family engagement set aside. So on your equitable services page, you'll see it calculates out of their allocation how much is coming from parent and engagement. So you need to make sure that you have something in your equitable services budget that deals with parent and engagement. So that's something that I will be looking at. All of my friends at the consolidated finance and applications teams will be looking at within what you have set aside for your private schools, that you have something that includes parent and family engagement. It's usually not like anything astronomical, but put aside for, they can put aside for communication. Right, so here are the requirements for your ESEA. So my activity strategy should be consistent with the LEA's parent engagement policy. Guess what, guys? We got new guidance this year that was released back in January, specifically. And one of the things that stuck out to me was using the lovely document and all my free time, was that you are required to submit your parent and family engagement policy to your SEA. So that's us. So an additional related document for you for Title I is for you to submit your LEA or your district level parent and family engagement policy. Should be that big of a deal because you all have it done, right? Yes, okay, great. All right. Also, any activities that you have at the LEA level, they the strategies we did at least one of them. So it needs to be supporting parent and family engagement, professional development for your LEAs. It needs to support programs that reach parents at home and community and in schools. It needs to disseminate information on best practices focused on parent and family engagement. And it needs to be collaborating or providing allocations to schools to collaborate with community-based organizations that have a record of success of increasing parent and family engagement. My plug is, if you were setting aside money at the district level for parent and family engagement, you need to consult with your schools. Any money that you're setting aside at the LEA level takes money from schools. We really want to see parent and family engagement happening at schools. It's like I said, that's who knows what their parents need. So if you have a big set aside for parent engagement at the LEA level, I'm gonna be looking at it, I'm gonna be asking some questions. So here are, it doesn't work. But, it is in the handbook, you guys received as well. So, the South Carolina Parent and Family, school requirements, there's a booklet that we have, that is, the link is accurate in your handbook. And you can reach out to me and I can just send that on the way, or I can, we can schedule any kind of conversations you want. And then I also have to read you, the new Title I Parent and Family Engagement, regulatory guide. This is me. If you have questions about consultation, about parent family engagement requirements, set asides or whatever, you can reach out to me. Okay, my friends, with homeless. Yes, you can ask the question. Correct. Yes, that's what I think, the 188 is for your schools, so that's the second side here. They have a 1% that's taken out. So way that we'll check for that is if you were budgeting for your private schools. When I see a separate little line item that says, okay, it's not really. Awesome. Yeah. All right, what you got for me? Just your district. You still have to have a district level parent family engagement plan. So that's a requirement under ESEA. So, it just talks about how you're communicating with parents, how you're using them as stakeholders, all these systems. So your district should have something in place already that you revisit every year with your stakeholders and tweak, and that's what you're uploading, just the district level. Just one document. I do not need to see the schools. My lovely monitoring team. Any questions? Awesome. Something to see. We believe like a non-understanding between what points to watch, so thanks for bearing with us. Anyway, Carly Wright, the Community Coordinator. We always start with definition of memento. So our students who lack that fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence, which includes all of these indicators, sharing housing of others, that doubled up, that's the other terminology, due to loss of housing, hotel, motel families, trailer parks, campgrounds, transitional shelters, family shelters, families that might be living in cars, parks for public spaces, abandoned buildings, migratory children who live in any of these above circumstances, a family who is experiencing domestic violence or other type of violence qualify for memento. And also cannot also mention that our families that are experience loss of housing due to a natural disaster or a fire. We had our state had a early last year, so it's not just an economic indicator.
So it's for any family who's may lose housing due to natural disasters as well. As you can see, over the last 4 years, we have really increased our identification in Ringling across the state. And it was a goal of ours in our program office to have to be identifying by 2025, like at around 2.5%. And we're really close. And why are we excited that our identification is going up? Only because that we know, as Jennifer said earlier, it's about the children. We know that our children that need these services and supports and that stability are receiving it better than ever before. And that's thanks to the good work, great work in the field. So we also know that the 20 past school year, just about mentioned Helene, we surveyed all the districts, and about a third responded, and just in a few months post Helene, there was an increase of over 2,000 McKinney-Vento students. And that was just, we just asked, we didn't say specifically from Helene, because that's hard to tell. We know that about of our districts that was at over 2,000 students identified, and that's not it for the school year. So we do anticipate a much larger number when the data comes out. So when you're looking at your student set aside, that is required, as we know. It needs to be allowable, sufficient, and sustainable, and now more than ever. And we know that about half of our school districts in the room also have our EHCY sub-grant. So that means the other half of you do not. And that means that this Title I party set aside is the only funding you have for your McKinney-Vento students. So that means that critical conversations need to happen between you and your McKinney-Vento liaison. And I know for some of you in the room, that's a conversation with yourself. So if you need help processing that or need a mediator, people are more than happy to jump in and do that. But it really does require that conversation with multiple people and a team at the table to really talk about the specific needs and that are very much more nuanced for McKinney-Vento students. So that's efficiency. You want to look at your, like I said, the other funding that you may have, what community resources are available to your families and the community, what other donations you receive at schools throughout your district. We really encourage the liaison, the Title I, to really review the McKinney-Vento needs assessment. We will be updating the needs assessment in 2026, but we still do have one that is still current and active, specifically for McKinney-Vento. And then in your plan, please include a justification and gems in your set aside narrative. And we work with the team, if there are any questions, to make sure that everything is allowable and really sufficient, really looking at that piece. So we can best serve our students so they can succeed and excel in school.
So paper, I can't look at this, I'm in, yeah. Thank you. All right, so we crunched the numbers a little, and it's just really helpful for us at the state level to see where we all are looking at the districts, what the trends are. And so we looked at the 2023, 22-23, and if you look at the 23-24 to kind of get an idea of what our set asides look like. And as you can see, we over those that year, we increased having more districts that were only doing $1 to $25 per pupil. But there could be some reasons for that. Burley was just talking about other money that's available for our students. We should be utilizing that first. And a lot of districts had a decent amount of ARP funds that needed to be spent for the deadline for that grant. So we saw more districts utilizing those ARP funds. And then because of that, their Title I set aside was a little smaller. So we really, you can do a per pupil amount. So say a suggestion is like $100 per pupil that's identified as McKinney-Vento, up to possibly $500. As you see here, we do have that almost a little over 20 districts have, if you do the math, a little over $100 per student that's identified McKinney-Vento in their set aside. And so, while we don't, mandate a per pupil amount, we do ask, again, that sufficiency piece. So, if you're serving your students and their needs are being met, then it's very easy for us to say that, yeah, you have the right amount set aside. And what we've done, this has been a labor of love for the past couple of years. We've been doing some collaboration at the state level, and we actually have a resource that should give you some helpful information regarding this set aside. And then also on the flip side, gives you some examples of what's allowable and then what's not allowable. Obviously, this document isn't completely, like there might be other items that are allowable that aren't on that document. And so that's why it's really important if you are thinking of something that isn't on there, but you think, oh, this is actually what our students need. We can show you by our needs assessment and other data. We want to work with districts. And so we would say reach out to Title I, reach out to McKinney-Vento, and we can do some collaboration if for some reason there's some kind of activity or idea that your district has to serve your students that is included. We send it over on the table, so as you leave for lunch or as you come back, you grab it, take a look at it, and yeah, it should help give you some next steps for setting your sets. And then we just have some final reminders. So the Title I set aside for homeless, obviously it's only for students experiencing homelessness. So it's very strict about that. One thing that we ask is, and when we were monitored a couple of years ago in McKinney-Vento, one of the things they saw is that if the district is consistently using the same amount of money over and over and over and over every year, but their numbers are changing and maybe different needs are happening, that just shouldn't be the case. So we're really looking to say, okay, you set this aside last year. If it just gets pushed over, we're going to start kind of asking questions about that. Obviously, evaluate. Are your students being served? Are they being more successful? Are their needs being met? So that sufficiency piece is really important. Obviously, no money. We don't just leave the money there and then at the end of the year we're not actually utilizing it for students. And then the last part, so as I'm aware the McKinney-Vento had, I also were the foster care point of contact. So I know some of you from that. And if you are not allowed to use foster care transportation in the Title I Part A set aside for homeless, you can have a separate set aside for foster care to do transportation. So it's not that it's not allowable under Title I, it just can't be in the Title I Part A set aside. So we just want to make sure that that's a different bucket so no one gets confused on it. That is it for us. So is there any questions? It's a great job, and that means you don't want to get lunch. But really, Brooke and I are, please reach out to us. Information may not be on the slide, but we'll make sure to get that to anyone if they